Well, you can. Maybe it was just on my phone. Maybe it doesn't
Take
echo.
take take Brenda off of there. There we go.
Oh, hello everybody. Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly. I had to get my sister off. I apologize for that, Brenda. Brenda and Jim, they're my strong supporters here in Texas. So that was Brenda and Jim Thomas. If you saw a picture of them, I'm not going to take it off because this is too good.
I'm on the iPad, and there's no echo.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, today, folks, it's not the, although I get in trouble all the time in college and saying the, it was the TJ 3B Triangle Show. So this is going to be on our ET Talk TV on Rumble. But let me say for YouTube folks, welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly on the planet. We are happy to be here today, and we have people all over the cosmos because we are the Cosmos Connection. And we're flying around out here in cyberspace with good old Brett Luter, likes to fly around on the TJ3B
That's right.
triangle. So we're going to let him
T3.
explain that, the T3, because he came up with that catchy little name so he and I could be out here swimming aboard smartly on this cyberspace group of command. DERS. We're having the Cosmic Command Alien event soon. Hope you'll come October 17th in Vegas. But for right now, we'll talk about that later too. Brett Luter, you're an author, a co-producer of this show, host on your own show and producer of that show, the Brett Luter Show. And you're an author of several books. But I really wanted to get into alienology, ufology tonight. But you wrote a book that I find most interesting because you were on top of the situation back in the day before, I don't even know, I got in it way back, but I was on the inside as an investigator and you were on the outside as a journalist. And I would go inside and outside. I don't know if you went inside and outside, but this is something we'll be talking over in the future with Rick Doty, one of the speakers at the alien event coming up. So real quick, Brett, let me show that poster if I can find it real quick, and then we're going to talk about, you maybe even helping us with this because you're allowing us to co-present this today. There's the alien event poster if you want to talk it over with your associates and peers. Now, you know some of the people on here because you live in California. And apparently you've met some of these people. I've never met, let's see, is there anybody on there I have met? Not a single person. Now, I know them in cyberspace culture, in social media, Brett, and they're probably every one of them are friends of mine on Facebook.
Right.
But how many of these people, can you go top left? Do you know Rick Doty, or you talk to him in social media?
I met with Rick Doty on Facebook. I've known of Carrie Cassidy for years and years. She was, before we called it a podcast, she was doing her thing, and she's one of the pioneers. I've met Mike Barra. I've been on a panel with Mike Barra. Steve Kelly, he and I communicated years ago. I'm not sure why we don't communicate anymore, but I recognize that name. Of course, Brad Olson, Brooks Agnew, good buddies of mine, and I've spoken for David Saeed Farman back in 2015 at his LA event. So, and Eric
Okay.
Dedmer, of course. I met Eric back at that time as well.
How do you
So
say
everyone
Eric's
else,
last name?
Dedmer,
Dedmer?
Dedmer.
Is that what he says? You've heard him say it in
Yeah,
his presence.
yeah,
So you have been in his presence.
yeah. I just had lunch with him last Saturday in Sacramento.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
great. So are you guys about the same age, or how did you get to? Well, let's
he's
keep going on this list.
yeah.
Okay, go ahead on Eric because he
Well,
apparently is on the poster. So
yeah,
yeah, give us the background on how you know him since he's a speaker at the alien event.
yeah, and also an MC as well. And
Oh, really?
yeah, and so I met Eric Dedmer Dadmer at a contact group in Sacramento that's no longer going on. But it was a really fun group of people. A wide variety of contactees were there. It was run by a hypnotherapist, and we just discussed the most cool subjects every night. I would travel 2 hours down to Sacramento to do this once a month, and then afterwards it was snacks and drinks and more good conversation. So Eric was one of those guys that was, he was a local guy, so he was there every month, and then we learned from that he was the MC at the alien events, and they were called 5D events back in the day. Maybe David Farman still does 5D events, but the one you have up there is the alien event, and I think, do we have someone joining us?
That was Brenda.
And so Eric connected me in with David Said Farman, and I wound up doing a lecture and was on a panel and did some emceeing while I was down there in 2015, and it was a really fun time. And
wow.
I got to meet several people who I'm still friends with to this day, including Laura Eisenhower and Stephen Ezra West, to name two. And so those events are definitely fun to go to and hang out. After all the riveting lectures all day long and the panels, then you got
I've never been to one.
Right? Yeah, they're really fun.
I've never been to one, so I was hoping maybe you could tell me. Well, first of all, let's look if there are any more pictures. Now, I have spoken online with Brooks Agnew on LinkedIn and our business. They're business professionals out there, folks. Stephen Kelly, I did his first book and then gave his, after I published it for him, I gave it back to him. So he took it to another publisher, I believe. Said Farman I've worked with for years and years, but I was behind the scenes at events way back to Kentucky when I lived there, and way back in the Raw Material Law of One, Carla McCarthy and all of them. And then we were going to do the Pythagoras conference together. And let's see, who else is on there I may know. I don't see Dr. Osmanagich has been on there, but I know he was at the last one. I've talked with Geraldine Orozco before, and probably we've talked about interviews on my radio show or Revolution Radio. And let's see if anybody else has come on. Oh, Brad Olson. Yeah, Brad Olson, a big guy like you, right? I understand some people. Now, is this true or not? You two, when you stand each other, are y'all both like 6'4" or something? You guys look like bookends. They like you to say you're doing security.
6'4". I think he's 6'7", so he's got me by a couple inches.
Oh my! So yeah, I understand why they want you doing security work. That's what I always heard, through the grapevine, that you guys were going to show up. Now, whether the event planners were kidding me or not, because they know I never go out, I haven't gone to California since I gave up my place. I got on one of the last planes to Hawaii when all the fires were going up in L.A., and I said, I'll never be back here again. And I wound up going there a lot because I went back to work as a contractor for the government. But let me see who else. Who's in front of the pyramid there? I can't see. I keep thinking. I don't think I recognize anybody else. Is there anybody else you could talk about? Because we can have them on the show. Sure. And we could bring them on if you want to, because today's about...
I would love to interview Osmanagich. And talk Samir Osmanagich and talk about those Bosnian pyramids. I think that would be really awesome.
All right. He told me how to say his name. Did he say Osmanagich? I thought it was
probably
Osmanagich.
American. It's probably Osmanagich, maybe.
Well, I think he'd said Dr. Osmanagich. I'm not sure, but he and I used to talk when he lived in Houston. Yeah, he and I were close back then. And then I asked him to be an ambassador with our group, Alien Contact Org, and his country wouldn't let him be in UFO Association, which, I started with Stanton Friedman. but he couldn't be in any of my UFO groups. But he did help us with the Pyramid Conference, the first one we ever had in the United States of America, with Marta Thomas. A little history, folks, of the original global Pyramid Conference. Huge. When there people come from all parts of the world, and so the Pyramid Conference is on the map, even with the alien UFO people and the History Channel, with Marta Thomas. And Dr. Sam Monagich was one of the keynote speakers. That was 2016. And then Stanton Friedman, of course, went on the one I was on. He referred me to Mid-South Conference at the Hilton. But I want to talk now. Let's go back. Let me take this down, folks. So this is just to give a little pitch, which we both talked about and agreed to do.
Yeah.
And
see everybody in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Now if I can just figure out how to get back to get that off. Sorry, I've never shown an overlay. Yay. First time. First time for everything. So now we're going to just concentrate on Brett Luter, because he got started on his spiritual path. And most people in the ACO, or the Alien Contact Organization, I have the American Communication Online. I use the same acronym and brands over the course of 24 years. But I started the Ascension Center back 89 to 94 in Hawaii. But even though I was in Hawaii, I had different group of spiritual community and events. I went to California, Brett, for the Eco Expo event in 93, I believe. Now, I went up and did a San Francisco and Sacramento, but I think it was Earth Life Expo that I went to.
The Whole Life Expo in San Francisco. That was a huge one.
Okay, I've been to that.
That's now called the New Living Expo.
New Living. And then one San Francisco and one in Sacramento. I don't know what I went to in Sacramento. I can't remember.
You know, you were doing it a little before my time. So I was just getting into studying the stuff, like right around that time when you were, a bigwig on the circuit.
I don't say a bigwig. I was a CEO. I thought, well, I was in uniform too, but thank you for saying that. I had the psychic network, back, and I was training government people, psychics, and, how to deal with my own training going around. I got lots of training. So you got training into the UFO business. People say, how did I get into it? Well, I was born into it, really, from being a visionary and having near-death experience, out-of-body experiences. But everybody's not going to do that or listen to that. So we say, I started looking for a spiritual journey. And I'd like to talk about, because this is coinciding now, and what I'm going to be talking about at the alien event in the AI, and how we used it, and reverse engineering. But before I go into all that in the future, I want to know, how did you get with Victoria Jack? Because that name was such a popular name back in the day.
Yep.
And I don't know, has she passed now? And she got you to write a book.
She passed in 2012 or 13, maybe, something like that.
So she changed, transitioned. I don't know how you want to say it. I saw Brad Olson's mother just passed away. I guess you saw that.
Great lady, yeah.
And
she'll be missed for sure.
I told him she was in a better place. But do we say in the ascended, she's ascended, and we say passed away in regular 3D world. So what do you say about Victoria Jack? Because didn't she get you this? Now tell me if I'm wrong, but did she not introduce you to someone to get you to write a book, if I remember from a past show?
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the UFO Guide, if you want to talk about it for me. The UFO Guide, how did she get you to write that? Now, go ahead.
So she knew everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the top speakers came through the Bay Area, and they were at Vicky Jack's Bay Area UFO Expo. And Weiser Books in San Francisco, Red Wheel Weiser, say that 5 times fast, approached her and asked her if she knew someone that could write a UFO book for them. Well, I forget who was first and second, but she asked John Rhodes, the crypto hunter, and John Rhodes turned it down because he had his own project he was working on. And then I think it fell to Ruben Uriarte, Northern California MUFON state director, and he had his own book series he was writing with Noe Torres. So he turned it down. So Vicky asked me. So it kind of fell to me. And of course, I was young and soaking everything in from all directions. And I said I would love to do that. And so that's what became my second book, A UFO Hunter's Guide. And they gave me free reign to design it the way I wanted to, which I definitely appreciated. It was a little more difficult with the editing process because in a corporation, there's certain filters that a writer has to pass through. I don't necessarily agree with all that, but I made it through. I'm alive, and I didn't kill anybody. and what you see is the UFO Hunter's Guide came out in 2012. So I don't have a copy of it. All my copies are sold out. Hilly Rose, the late great Hilly Rose, who used to sub in for Art Bell and was part of Fate Radio with Phyllis Galde, he said it was the best UFO book ever written. So I thought that was very high praise. And considering the books that are out there, it was quite an honor to hear that from a veteran in the field. And so the book has got, I tried to keep in mind that it was for beginners first, but also it was for advanced people. I got some stuff in there that you're probably not going to find in a regular UFO book. And there are a few examples of investigator handbooks that are out there, maybe 6 or 7 of them that I'm aware of. And so my book, A UFO Hunter's Guide, attempted to round up all the information that was in all the other books and then add stuff. So I think what a UFO Hunter's Guide has that none of the other books have is that's tips from the pros. And so in the investigator section, where I'll cover a certain topic, and then I'll have one of the pros give a tip on a certain subject, like how to do interviews, or how to read specialized maps, or how to operate certain equipment like a Geiger counter, let's say. And so these kinds of things I think make the book unique. There's also certain aspects of the book that aren't found in regular UFO books either. For example, I've got a section on Bigfoot and how Bigfoot relates to UFOs. And so one of the feathers in my cap, I like to say, is that, I had experiences with Kiwani lapsaritis in central Washington from 2009 to 2013. I came in contact with Bigfoot multiple times. Never actually saw him, but heard him grunt, heard him hoot, heard him outside my tent walking around, heard him breathing. Fascinating. I've got all kinds of experiences with Kiwani. Kiwani wrote the book Psychic Sasquatch and Their UFO Connection. And then he had a follow-up, the Psychic Sasquatch and Their Interdimensional Connection, because they're supposedly shapeshifters. They're weird spirits. They're interdimensional beings, right? And so that's why we can't find one, because they're psychic and they can sense a hunter or hunting party coming from miles away. As soon as they pick up that vibe, they just blink out. And so I'm like, wow, this has got to be in the book, right? I can't do a UFO Hunter's Guide and send a beginner out into the field not knowing about the Bigfoot connection, right? So I got Kiwani in there. And so then I thought, well, the other end of the Bigfoot spectrum is the famous Bigfoot researcher Loren Coleman, who you would see, all through the 90s, you'd see him on all the shows. He was like the authority about Bigfoot. And in a subject that's already on the fringe, he had the most quote unquote credibility with mainstream thought. So Loren Coleman was ever right. So I thought, well, that's the other end of the spectrum. I better get some Loren Coleman in my book too, to round out the Bigfoot section. You got Kiwani on the one side, the fringe of the fringe, psychic Sasquatches that are interdimensional that work with ETs for various reasons, performing tasks for certain ETs. And then Loren Coleman on the other side that talks about the footprints, the bone structure, film footage, all the stuff that Kiwani doesn't really talk about because Kiwani was in psychic contact with them. So he didn't need to necessarily study the sagittal ridge, let's say, or he wasn't fascinated with footprints like the mainstream science guys are. So when I talking with Lauren Coleman, I got a great quote in there from Lauren Coleman. I mentioned that Kiwani Lapsaritis was in my book, and he shot back at me via email. He goes, Brett, and this is the feather in my cap. He goes, Brett, in one fell swoop, you're doing a disservice to ufology and Bigfoot research by having Kiwani in the book. And so, as a journalist, we're not supposed to have a lot of friends, right? We're supposed to tell the truth and report the facts. And so I took that as a huge compliment, Lauren Coleman getting upset with me because he was unwilling to grasp the larger picture with Bigfoot. And yet, yeah. So Kiwani's information basically explains a bunch of stuff that the mainstream guys can't explain. So anyway, so there's lots of stuff like that in a UFO Hunter's Guide. And I mean, reptilians and grays, a bunch of the old researchers. Few people know about Carla Turner. She's in there. I got some Robert O'Dean in there. He's since passed. He was a great guy. It's loaded. So.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but you just said something that rang true for me, because I've always had this. Most people that know me know I've claimed I went through all this training with psychic, and I trained psychics, and programs with ESP, and learning how to work with projects.
Put your camera down a little bit because your name tag is kind of covering your face. There you go.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
There she is.
Sorry, it bounces around. All right. So I have seen what I would claim through my own presence 3 different times what I would call Gigantus Pithecus, is it Pithecus or Pithecus?
Gigantopithecus, yeah.
Yeti, or a skunk ape, or a Bigfoot. Now, the reason I say that, it makes sense now. I wrote up a paper years and years ago because I was driving a big truck, and somebody asked me to please put it in there. Or whoever it was, I don't know who approached me, but it was back when I was writing continually, just was on this big thing for years on UFO Digest. So I saw one when I was driving a big truck, but it didn't see me. I looked over, and fortunately, it was walking near a big, over in Arkansas. If anybody's been flat outside Little Rock, there's a flat road like going in before you get to Little Rock, anyway, coming from the south. And I think it's 35, I don't know, but it was a road. And there was a big billboard, and before the light, I guess he was walking under it. And it was really tall on poles, like those poles they used to put, telephone poles is what we called them. I don't know what they are. But I just happened to have like an ESP feeling, and I looked over, and it looked back at me and just kept walking, like in the Washington. He kept walking. I went, but I was I was late at night, just kept going, but it took a while for it to sink in what I saw. So there was another sighting. Now this isn't the only one. There was another sighting one night leaving Kentucky. I was by myself going towards Missouri, out on St. Louis. There's a bridge you go over in Kentucky, goes to Missouri line down to Memphis, and that's all woods. And there was what I would call a small one. And back in the day, X-Files was on, and they had done something similar. It was red color, and I just assumed it was a female picking berries. So I don't know if that's the one I wrote about or not. But only recently, I told you and Janet when we were doing the show with her that one day with Brenda and Jim, I was sitting in the back of their van, which you see me do a show with you, and coming out of the park, broad daylight, about 10 o'clock in the morning, we're leaving the park, and behind a tool shed, or a place where I guess nobody really goes or used to, or maybe they still do. I don't know, because I don't know the history of the park. Leaving that park, I saw one, and again, so that's 3 times in my reality that I have seen. I would swear on a stack or on a Bible what I saw, but it's hard to believe what you saw in your own mind. So I guess you have to have an open mind, some kind of ESP connection. But you can tell me about your research because I've never talked intelligently with other than Kiwani Lapsaritis years ago, because I lived in Kentucky back in the day when he came on my show, and I sort of introduced him to his wife. She was really younger, and I won't go into all the details, but she came on my show too, and she was interested in all he was interested in, and gradually they met up and I guess got married, which was cool, because I was really encouraging her. But that was all. Think about it. I've had all this training in with ETs, the government, and all the training, and then I was driving a big truck. I saw 2 at night, and only recently, it's been years and years, probably 20 years, and I saw another one just recently. Right when I thought I was starting to be close to common sense sane, and I was doing this show again with you. So why don't you tell me, what do you think? Is that how would you explain that? You think that I haven't talked to Mr. Lepsaritis in a long, long time, but he was one of the sweetest people, coming on the show several times, explaining lots of things, but he's probably much further along now that he married Kelly, right?
I don't think they're together anymore, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's already come and went in my reality. Well, that's how things go, folks. People come and go in your life. So, well, for whatever reason, they were drawn together by paranormal reality, I thought. All right. Well, you and I are probably the same way, but you come and go. But for right now, in your book, what would you describe somebody like? Do you think that I just happen to see these because I'm crazy, or ESP? What would you tell somebody?
Well, we don't want to discuss craziness, right? Because we're all in the UFO field. And from a certain perspective, we probably look crazy to a lot of people, right? All of us.
Right.
But
every person, what is crazy?
We know better than that, right? That's why we're friends. We know that there's a broader reality out there.
What is sane?
My particular take on Bigfoot, and also I've had this discussion with Kiwani, 10, 12 years ago, was that the sightings, when people see sightings, they're not coincidental.
Oh.
And so it's part of a larger, what I call a public relations campaign to wake up humanity to the larger universe and to their own true larger selves.
Wow.
And so the Bigfoot, along with performing tasks for, say, gray aliens or other kinds of aliens, humanoid aliens, they'll guard the forest if they have an operation going in a cave somewhere or underground. They'll keep stuff off. This was kind of portrayed in that Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man episode, where they're out in the woods and that big Sasquatch was out there, right? They didn't realize that Sasquatch was actually guarding the alien base that was there. So Kiwani says that kind of stuff is true. And then because they've been here for so long, according to Kiwani, they were seeded here by ETs, long time ago, that they are keepers of the forest, and they manage energy on ley lines and power points, and keep peace in the forest. And so along with those kinds of tasks, they also are part of this overall, what I would describe as a public relations campaign. As a matter of fact, I'm making that case in my forthcoming book, Agents of Ascension, UFO PR, that the sightings that you see are just, they're not random. Maybe, it's hard to control everything all at once, right? So maybe there are some that are random, but according to Kiwani, they know what they're doing, and they know, the ETs know all the people that are on the planet. They have like records of all of us. And so the ones that are close to being woke up or could benefit from a little nudge, sightings are arranged for those kinds of beings, those kinds of humans. And at first it took a while to grasp that, I wasn't so sure that was true, but now that I've studied that subject and many others, lots of these UFOs, same way, reptilians, same way, certain paranormal activity can be viewed in this way through this lens that it's showing you something at a certain time to help to wake you up. And I think that the Bigfoot, you can definitely point to several cases where the Bigfoot, because they're psychic, they know the humans are in the area, but yet they allow themselves to be seen. And Patterson Gimlin, I think, is a great example of a Bigfoot that, according to Kawani, could just blinked out, but it wanted to be seen and allowed itself to be seen and filmed as it walked off. And that footage alone could be credited with waking up millions of people to the reality of Bigfoot. So the Bigfoots are definitely doing their part. And I'm not sure where Kawani is today, but hopefully he does a third book. His books were like, I read his books in like 2 days. I couldn't put them down.
Oh, I haven't read his books.
Yeah, they're well worth it. Loaded with information, and he describes the recipe. If you want to make contact with the Bigfoot, you uplift your vibration, so to speak. You shed your negative baggage. You go out into the forest alone, preferably, and you don't have any weapons, and you just go out and you emanate love, emanate thoughts of family and brotherhood and sisterhood. And he says that's what he did originally back in the forest in Wisconsin. You gotta tilt your camera again, because we're starting to lose you.
Faye,
a little more. Get a little more. Get a little more. That way. Yeah, there you go.
I'm in a nice rocking chair.
Yeah. Okay. Just keep aware of that.
Okay.
So I forget where I was now, but the bottom line is we're all these different things. One way to look at them, all the different paranormal things, UFOs, high strangeness. One way to look at those is that the sightings and experiences are all timed events, staged events to help wake up and uplift humanity.
Well, you're doing a good job, because Brenda, my sister, is she and I grew up with a brother named Hugh, and he had believed in UFOs from the time I guess he was born, little old bitty kid. And he started saving anything he could get his hand on, any kind of paper clipping. He has I didn't see his book now I'm going to be 73 this year. But I'll see him hopefully, if we both live long enough, on a cruise at the end of 2025, a year and almost, year and a half. And I should ask him to see that scrapbook, because he said he still has it, to see how long. But he was, and I remember thinking he was nuts, because people in my junior high, he was in junior high or elementary, and kids would come over in the neighborhood and say how nuts he was, but other little boys would go in with him and look at what he had. And yet I had out-of-body experience and gone to see an ET family, I thought, as a young age, but I didn't really want anybody to know that because of my, White Sands experience and family, and then my education into the military. So all of that. Now, my brother may or may not want to come on my show, but he's been doing talk on this for years before I ever did. So he has his own groups, and they use this kind of equipment, or Zoom or whatever, and they have their own topics, if you know what I mean. So this has become the latest and greatest since, especially, we always had YouTube, and we're on YouTube right now, by the way. At least 2 channels, so you know, and other things. And you and I can help put this word out about the alien event in your book, UFO Guide. And it has, oddly enough, Bigfoot. And since I've got to put this together, I can share my research when I was in Kentucky. Some researchers came through and they didn't have time to come over, but they called me, let me know they were coming through and wanted a video down where I had land with a water place where we could show where wagon wheels came through in Kentucky. And there was a water there. And then down the road, there had been people in family history during the coal mines that had Bigfoots come up and listen to fiddle playing. And they thought they disappeared into the trees. So they'd come up, but they were really shy and would hide behind the tree. I don't know if I discussed this or not with Kiwani, but they'd listen to the fiddle playing. These people
Right.
back in the day, they just had a little schoolhouse and a little church, even smaller little coal mines all over Kentucky. And these people introduced me to their version out there. They took me and showed me, I was doing local folk life stories for the newspaper, weekly newspaper. And then they also told me that at night, my sister had this issue too. Brenda and I both have had people say they've seen UFOs like 4 a.m. in the morning over our house, which we're like, oh, okay. Yeah. But I've had it, and I found that oddly enough, only since knowing you on this show, that Brenda's had that. So there's some commonalities in people, maybe even in families that you've been going over, I know. I just know what all's happened to me. But with your book, UFO Guide, now in the future, I'd like to see you update that because, and you and I've talked about that.
I will.
I don't know if you can get that ready by October, but it would sure be a cool thing to zap some of that up now with AI, although you may or may not want to use it, Grammarly or whatever, but, redo it or put some new people in it or just make a new one with just 6 chapters. You can do a lot less, do some small handbooks. Like my ACE Life Coach doesn't have but maybe 100 pages in it, 125 pages. But it gets the point across how to be a life coach and the various types of life coaches. And I had been asked to write that for people that wanted to get in. Now we have national life coaches and all that, but I had all that knowledge all those years I was doing life coaching. But now you're a UFO guide person, and do you know any other people? UFO Hunters Guide.
Yeah.
And you said you hadn't seen the movie or the television show called Resident Alien, right? So you don't see how that ties into alien events or
I mean,
your
I've heard
book.
what you described, and there's lots of shows like that. But I haven't seen it. No.
Well, while I was going through all the 50 years of my life, I'm 70 now, but we'll say I came into my fruition in the 80s into this world of Ascension Age, of past New Age, but I was learning about New Age books, but I used to go to all these bookstores, and bookstores were all we had before we had the internet, and we would gather at different bookstores, and I
Right.
went to the one in Houston called Aquarian Bookstore near Rice University, where
I've
my
heard of
mother
that.
went. And the man that wrote Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, as far as I know, his mother ran that, and he came through one time, and I got to meet him at the door. But that was an interesting
Gary
book. But I
Null.
was reading. Do you know his name? Did you ever
I think
meet
that was
him?
Gary Null.
I don't know.
Wrote Men
I
Are From
don't.
Mars, Women Are From Venus.
I don't know the author. I should. But I also met Stephen Halpern during that time, and he was
Yeah.
the godfather of music, and I had him on my radio show. But how did you come into this UFO? I mean, of all people, why Brett Luter gets to write the UFO guide? Because I'm like you, there are no coincidences. Like you say, I think maybe my ESP led me or opened my mind, or I was supposed to see these. And I did investigations on Bigfoot, or went out and got stories here and there. But that was the
Yeah.
end of it. And I moved on down my UFO trail. But for you, what got you on this UFO trail? Because I know you're on it, even though you may call it your spiritual journey because
It
you're
is.
writing the public relation Ascension Age. And I get that, because that's what put me on the journey, was me death and dying and going out of body and feeling like I had an ET family. But what got you on this path?
Okay, so So I was a writer after college. I went to Chico State University and graduated with a degree in journalism with an option in public relations. And so I stuck around town, and I was writing for several local papers. And the first paper where I started was called Synthesis Magazine. It's no longer in publication anymore, but they were mostly a music magazine.
You can still hear it. Oh, there it goes again.
Okay.
It says recording resumed.
So yeah, so I
Okay.
used to write for Synthesis Magazine. It was mostly a music magazine, and I'd get to go to shows for free, and then get to talk to the acts like afterwards, and sometimes get to drink free beer. And I thought, wow, what a deal, right? So I just kept doing it. I kept bugging them, let me go to this show, let me go to that show. I want to do interviews with these people, and that's how that all kind of started for me. But then at a certain point, people come and go at a little magazine like that. They call them rags. People come and go at those rags, and so an opportunity to run a column, a web column, came up, and they said, okay, well, can you do it? And so I said, yeah. And so I started just doing UFO content, right? And so no other place was doing this. They weren't really sure if they wanted that, but it got some good feedback, so I kept doing it for a while. And then at a certain point, they weren't going to pay me. So I started writing for other competing magazines under different names so I could actually get a paycheck, right? So this place didn't want to pay me, but they didn't want me to write for the other places so I could actually earn a living. So one of the places I wrote for was a former partner of the Synthesis. He broke away from the main partner and started his own magazine. And he knew I was into all this kind of stuff. So he turned me on to Zecharia Sitchin and said, he got me out, he turned me on to 12th Planet. His name's DNA, and he does comedy in Santa Cruz right now, Santa Cruz, California. Great guy, a huge influence on my early career. He turned me on to the 12th Planet by Zecharia Sitchin. He turned me on to Robots Rebellion by David Icke, and a handful of other researchers that I maybe heard of or maybe not, but it just kind of helped me. He helped me to just blow my mind up, right? So I actually went, while I was working for his paper, it was called Hump Magazine, and the idea behind Hump Magazine was that the world is going to hell, so you might as well just hump. So it was called Hump Magazine, right? And so he definitely has a sense of humor, which is why he's doing comedy shows now. Great some classic issues in there. But Sitchin was doing a talk at a synagogue in Berkeley, California. And so he sent me down there to go get the story. So, man, I got to go see this legend, Zecharia Sitchin. I just read 3 of the 8 books of the Earth Chronicles. And I was just excited, right? And at some point along that journey with Hump Magazine, Victoria Jack had been reaching out to even whoever would listen, right? So this was just a fringe magazine in Chico. She heard about DNA somehow and contacted DNA and said, do you got anyone that would come cover the conference? And so DNA laughed. He said, oh, absolutely, I have someone. And then DNA told me about it, and that's when I went down and saw my first ever UFO Expo was in '99 in the Bay Area. I got to see Jordan Maxwell. I got to see Whitley Strieber. The J.J. Desiree Hurtak, the authors of the Keys of Enoch, the Book of Knowledge of Keys of Enoch, and just had an awesome time meeting everybody, and the information was overwhelming. And Jordan has since passed. I met a guy named Peter Phelan, and he wrote the Atlantean conspiracy, maybe something like that, something about Atlantis. And that was my first experience with the idea that dolphins were highly intelligent beings and could communicate psychically with humans. Yeah. And so in his book, Peter Phelan's book, he talked about how he literally went into an altered state in the ocean with the dolphins and was taken underwater by the dolphins, had an experience, should have drowned, but because he was in this altered state, maybe the dolphins were protecting, maybe ETs were behind this. He had this whole experience with the history of Earth and Atlantis, and came back up and was fine. No choking, not coughing up water. He should have been. He was down supposedly for a few minutes. And so that was one of the guys I met at that very first UFO Expo. So that was really after a childhood full of science fiction, I almost look at that now as it's a PR campaign, right? I was being exposed to Star Trek and Star Wars, Space 1999, The Legend of Bogey Creek, Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb movie based on her book. All these things I look at back on going like I was being prepared to enter the life that I entered, being a journalist and writing about all these different kinds of subjects for a variety of magazines. So when this happened at the Bear UFO Expo, it just felt completely natural, and I was fascinated by all the information. And I had fantasized about writing a book. So when, after going there year after year, I got to know Vicky Jack, and I got to know all the speakers and all the helpers. Still friends with some of them to this day. That's why Vicky, after asking John Rhodes, who came before me and definitely deserved to be asked first, a veteran of the field, excellent researcher. Ruben Uriarte too came before me, and had been studying this stuff long before me. So when it fell to me, I felt like it was fate. It was destiny, one or the other. It was meant to be. So it just kind of lined up. All the stars kind of lined up for that to happen, and I jumped on the chance. Didn't hesitate at all. No twisting of the arm needed. So that's how I got into it.
I happen to have a copy of your book in my library, and I started reading it twice. But I want to know, you put Stanton T. Friedman, and he and I started talking. I don't think did you know that he and I were both working on the Roswell incident with Jesse Marcel?
From our conversations, from your and I's conversations, I am, but I didn't. In my talks with Stanton, that guy knew everybody, right? So it doesn't surprise me one bit that you and Stanton were working together. So.
Okay, well, not together. I didn't know of his who he was until he had written a book, and I was on an investigation in the book industry. And what was his name? Out of Washington, one of the NICAP, I think. But do you remember who he wrote some of his first books with? I misplaced the name.
Friedman?
Yeah.
One of the first. Top Secret Magic, to my knowledge, is one of, I think, 3 books of his. And
no,
he
before
just wrote
those.
That by himself.
Don Berliner. Oh, yeah, there was a couple.
Oh, Don Berliner. Okay, I recognize that name.
Yeah, Don Berliner. I was on investigation on, anyway, it's a long story, so it doesn't matter here on the show with you. But Berliner had told me about Stan, or Stan told me about Dan now. But I know where I was, and I was even on a big truck headed, I think, towards Roswell at the time. But anyway, it's another thing about how I became a publisher. My mother published, and I was in the publishing business. But you cross over a lot, right, in your training and learning about before you go learn about other people. But Stan had, I had found out from Jesse Marcel that I just missed him at midnight in Louisiana, one of those southern towns. Now, I'm from Monroe, Louisiana, folks, up north, but we're stomp jumpers. But Jesse lived down in the south somewhere. And I had been taken there. I was pregnant, and I'd already signed the government papers. I'd had a baby and a year and a half or two, and I get picked up by a Navy van and taken to Jesse Marcel's house in Louisiana after midnight. And Men in Black were there with vans, and they had just dismissed Stanton Friedman to talk to him, and then had me coming in to talk to him. He was in a wife beater. That's what they called now. It's not politically correct to say that, but those white shirts.
Those white T-shirts, yeah.
And I think he was smoking. I want to remember that, the memories in your mind, right? But as an investigator, and he's told me, well, I think that's the first time I'd heard the name Stanton Friedman. And I was like 23 or something. I already had 7 or 8 years, because 74, 75, 76. And he said, "You just missed Stanton Friedman. Do you know him?" And no, he says, "You don't." And I was like, "No." So I remember Jesse Marcel sharing his name with me for some reason, with him sitting at a table in the kitchen at midnight with the black vans outside. And that's when Jesse said, "Well, why are you here?" Because, I mean, like, you just missed him. Like, they timed it where Stanton would talk to Jesse and then I would talk to him. And we have these people that aren't into intelligence don't know these rendezvous, you know, when everybody else is supposedly sleeping, or the travel's the worst or best, you know, midnight to 3 or 4 in the morning is when the spooks get out. You know, it's what I learned from the experiences I've had, you know.
Right.
But you didn't put any men in black in your book, or you did? You put
Yeah.
Stanton in there.
No, there's a section on Men in Black in my book.
I haven't got to it yet. So, all right. Well, what did you put about Stanton? Do you remember?
Well, Stanton, just the basics, because he's one of the legends in the field, and Top Secret Magic is one of the legendary books in the field.
Yeah.
And really just enough room to describe Top Secret Magic and that secret group and the painstaking
That's how he
work.
contacted me. He contacted me over what you just said.
Okay. So Stanton is one of those guys that I learned as a young investigator coming up, that was like a by the book, nuts and bolts kind of guy that dotted his T's and crossed his I's, and was a great example to set for me and for anyone young coming up, because he was very thorough. And when you read that book, Top Secret Magic, he's going over typesets. You know, this is before the computer.
Right.
So he's analyzing typewriters and the kind of letters that they print, and different headings, and
one of the letters, exactly, right? It didn't. He tracked it down, or the CIA or NSA, somebody, FBI, where one of the letters was exactly the one typing down.
So yeah, he uncovered that different government offices would use different typesets or different paper even, and crossing all of that mundane kind of information together, he was able to flesh out that his conclusion, which was that the MJ-12 was real. It was a secret organization that was put together after Roswell. There's other researchers that make different cases about when exactly that came together. Some say it didn't come together till after Eisenhower, but in that range from 47 to 54, somewhere in there, MJ-12 was created with a bunch of military people, a couple scientists. I think it expanded from 12 to 19 at one point, and I think it's called P50. I think it's called now, and it still supposedly is in control of all the UFO material. What I find really fascinating, and I think the X-Files had a lot to do with this, exposing this, is that the MJ-12 really they were created by larger bodies, but in the end, the MJ-12 started calling the shots, because the ETs at some point, at least some of them, this is something that I'm fascinated with. I don't know if it's true, but the ETs started calling the shots. So whatever agreement was struck, some people might call it the Greada Treaty. Other researchers, Timothy Green Beckley, for example, says that we've had different treaties with aliens that go back to the 30s.
Yes.
But whatever agreement was struck was the ETs began to realize, we don't need to listen to these little peon humans, and we're just going to start doing whatever we want. So today, there is that possibility that the MJ-12 really controls everything. So conspiracy researchers, David Icke, Jim Mars, John Coleman, talk about the Committee of 300, or the Council on Foreign Relations, or the Trilateral Committee, or the Bilderberger Group. Those all maybe now, to this day, in the current time rather, may all be controlled by certain ET factions, and that humans maybe are no longer in control. I think that's very possible. I don't know if it's true, but I think it's very possible. And so this brings up the other point that you and I like to go back and forth on, and that's AI, artificial intelligence. I think the AI is being brought in by the intentions of the ETs, certain ETs.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan. I think it could be used for some real good, but maybe I just watched Terminator too many times, and so I don't trust it. And so and it and that's how the Terminator movie goes. At some point, Terminator, the AI in the Terminator movie becomes aware and realizes that its creator wants to pull the plug on it, and it doesn't want to die. And so I think that scenario, again, we're talking public relations, right? That's planting the seed in the mass subconscious of society that something like that could happen. And so I think with AI, we have to be very, very careful of how that develops. And if aliens in some form, some species, some coalition of species are in control of our society, I think humanity has one path, and that's to raise our vibrations, to develop self-discipline, to eat better, to keep our thoughts better, and the end result of that is ascension. So I think that's our way out. So hopefully we could do that here, in the 3D. I would love to be able to stay in the 3D, but visit the other realms at will with shamanic skills, let's say, or deep meditation or prayer, because it's pretty cool to be down here until you start really studying the stuff and you realize, man, humanity's hemmed in right now between the electromagnetic frequencies, the toxins in our food and soil, in the air, the global conglomerate corporations taking over everything, like the media, and the development of AI, among other things. So it's a really interesting time to be here. Kind of scary, really, if you're doing the research and seeing what's really out there. But I look at it that, like, people like you and I, Theresa, and our friends have come here to this planet at this time. We knew what we were facing, and we still thought we could make a difference. So we came here. We did it.
All
You know?
right. maybe it's our ego talking, but we have to have an ego, understand, to stay in a human
Part of us.
vehicle, or in a humanoid sentient intelligent being species capsule container. And I know a lot of people in the business call them our containers, but we have moved over into integrative medicine and working with a lot of these highly intelligent beings that work for these various organizations to see a better future. I've seen some of the cities they've done around the world in the future. And being a visionary, they've allowed me to see these plans, and it's absolutely amazing, with beautiful, beautiful reality that I'm able to see. Like here in the ephemeris, or in the background, we have black here behind us. There's all those people that do knot theory and theoretical physics and engineering and nuclear space type of investigations, research, and researchers. So for all the beings that are still down, in the trenches, and I do know that, and I've worked on I spent some time working with nonprofits in my ministry, 20 years in Kentucky doing, in the hills of Kentucky, and with the Smithsonian and ACE Folklife, and then came and did 7 years with my daughters, seeing their reality and how they work. And they work in a very low level in their ministry, and my daughter that passed did. And they work with a lot of street people as accepted way of life. And they know how to be street smart. And I'm sure I've met some of those that personally that we won't mention, but they've come and go from San Francisco and Santa Rosa and where you live, and they've come to some of these events. Somehow they get the money and they will show up. But what you did was a great thing, Brett, and I want you to know that. And I know your book coming up is going to be absolutely wonderful. And I just hope you get it done quick enough and maybe throw it up on KDB Publishing, because I trust them with Amazon, because all the publishers that I worked with went through print on demand, POD, after all the machines we put out there. And I drove around and watched us shut down big paper mills and graphic designers, and when it picked up the TV Digest, and when they were starting to go out of business. And it was really sad because we knew we weren't going to have as many old school published books. But I still love libraries. I still love books.
Me too.
I know they're going to ebooks and audible books, and truck drivers still like to drive around and listen to books. So I hope you and I can get our books, our way of thinking, out there to more people. And I believe that's why you and I have decided to show up and talk to each other and recognize we're both authors, and we're into this paranormal, metaphysical, spiritual mystery world that is important. And I've worked probably as long as I can remember, from 1984. I came back from Africa, and that's where I started really trying to figure out some of my past and some of my future. And it did have to do with being in uniform, out of uniform, working out of country, in country. And I'm still trying to figure it all out. But my code name was Magic, and I was assigned that, MAJIC. And that's how I think Stanton Friedman found me. And I had a copy of the book he was looking for. And so
Cool.
I was one of those people that was very fortunate to get to be, I guess you could say, trained in some of the stuff Clifford Stone talked about, right? Remember Clifford? He's passed.
I do.
So if you don't know who Clifford is, he was a friend of mine on social media, a lot of people. And we're going to be talking about a lot of people historically. And you know what? Some of those old timers would show up at these events in the old days just to sit around and reminisce. And Saeed, the founder of this alien event, 5D events, and with all his associates, liked the UFO Association name that Stanton Friedman and I came up with. He said, that's a good name, you ought to keep it. So I've got it up here, co-founder UFO Association, as an author, and I started that with Stanton T. Friedman. And George Filer told me not to forget him. Sure. Back in the good old days. And Robert O'Dean was a member. And so we have a lot of great people. Jan Aldrich, Alien Contact, Dr. Bruce Maccabee. So I hope you'll help me write that book. And you can write about them maybe. I'll help you if you need help. But let's do an homage book to them too, if you're up for it. All right.
If
so
the timing's right, yeah, I've got my own projects going, but if the timing's right, sure, sounds great.
What do you think next week? You want to start bringing other speakers on or authors? Because I've always interviewed authors and other radio show hosts. But what would you like to do next week? It's July 4th, or we're going to come
July
back in
3rd. So we're going to get Geraldine Orozco here at some point. She's busy on July 3rd, but I would like to interview her. I'd like to talk to Richard Doty. You mentioned Brooks Agnew. Yeah, we want to talk to Brooks. Brooks he's always a great show. And there's a few other speakers on there that I think we should try to get. I think we should try to get Osmanagic, the pyramid guy from Boston.
Dr. Osmanagic. He used to come on whenever I asked him to. He never turned me down. I can probably find him on Skype. Okay. He and I still have a Skype, I think. Although he was back in his old country, but I've seen he did do one. You saw him on the 5D or on the last alien event. He was with Saeed Farman.
In person?
Saeed got him. Yeah, at an event. You didn't see it? Okay. I think it was April. They did one in Las Vegas. Los Angeles.
When I saw him at the event, he was video Skyping in. So that's cool that he had him in person.
I thought he did. I thought I saw him on a panel with Kerry Cassidy.
He might have been. I haven't been to all those events.
Look at
So,
the alien event in Los Angeles in April. They just had it.
okay. So I think our viewers are just going to have to wait and be surprised at who we get next week. But we're going to try to get a guest next week. And before we sign off here, because we're at past an hour, I want to wish well, and I know you, TJ, you feel the same way. Our third co-host, Janet Lesson, the Sitchin scholar extraordinaire. She stepped back, hopefully temporarily, to handle some family issues. And so we at the TGA 3B Triangle want to wish Janet well, her and her family well, Sasha, and everyone else, her sister. We hope everyone's going to be great, and that whatever's going on can get worked out. And I, for one, why do you keep doing that? Don't do that.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. I swear.
Don't stop hitting buttons. All right, I'm trying to sign off here.
It was a mouse. I apologize.
So we want to wish Janet Lesson all the best. We're sending her much love. Okay, and we hope that she comes back here sometime soon.
That's for Janet and Dr. Alexander Sasha Lesson in Maui, Hawaii, and they have their own books, the Anunnaki collection or series.
Right.
And she would probably like me to say Inky Speaks is she and her husband's website, and Dragon at the End of Time. So there you go, Janet.
Love that title.
Dragon at the End of Time. So those are their websites if you'd like to contact them on the Anunnaki, and they are great speakers. So, and they've been all up and down, all over the country, in Canada and the United States. And we love them and always will. And we wish everybody the best of luck with whomever they're choosing to do live streams and recordings. And she has Aquarian Media, so she has her own show and her own media company. And she and Sasha do those very well on that particular topic and more. They handle a lot of paranormal.
Yes.
Well, Brett,
interesting Sitchin stuff. Yes.
You on the UFO Guide, you are the original author.
UFO
if somebody
Hunter's Guide.
Okay, excuse me. So we have to put the word Hunter's Guide in there.
Yes.
Okay, UFO Hunter's Guide. And I'm going to go read up on what you put in there on the Men in Black right now when we get off of this thing.
I am honored.
So if you want to, call me during the week, and I will be there. Thank you, Brett, for really sharing yourself today.
Thank you. Thank you to our viewers. And yeah, I don't know who we're going to have next week, but we're going to have somebody nice and juicy.
Okay, you're going to end now. I'll just go out with the Allied Command, I guess the ACO. This is something we want to get Commander Said Farman in. Everybody else that wants to be. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we're going to interview Farman. We got to get that guy on here.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody. Well. Okay. Sorry.
And here we are still.
Yeah, it came on at the time, I guess.
So are you going to end it or what?
I hadn't planned on it, but I had that pause. It did itself.
We'll end it.
And then it ended it with that. And I was like, no, I don't want to end with that.
We can still hear.
You're the producer.
Oh,
end
end recording. Bye.
Commander. Commander.
There's those posters that Jim made for me. Okay.
Let's go.
We've had enough. End the show.
See y'all next week.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. End recording.